What's up, guys? Connor O'Hanlon here for another episode of the Greater Society podcast. And today we have the historic, the monumental, the gigantic, the legendary arrest, the first arrest of Donald J. Trump, Donald John Trump, for anyone who didn't know what his middle name was. We have the pleasure, I suppose, of going through what happened, what are the charges, the media frenzy around it, the right-wing reaction to it, and Trump's reaction to it. And then we're going to talk about the connections to the primary. We're going to talk about the connections to him running for president, of course, in 2024. Subsequent to that, we will be talking about some major progressive wins, specifically in Chicago for the mayor's race and in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court, which, by the way, I will probably mention this again later. There are Supreme Court, I believe it's one Supreme Court seat up in Pennsylvania this year as well. So be aware of that when you are looking at these wins. We need to then take it to the local and to the state level where we recognize that. And again, then we will lead right into our favorite topic, of course, the Central Bucks School Board once again. But this time, we're going to be talking about not the school board itself, surprisingly. We're going to be talking about some of the ancillary characters. We're going to be talking about attacks on friend of the show and artist. We will talk about that. I'll save that for later. That'll be all I tease about it. And then we're going to take a look and kind of push back on this website called CBSD 411, which you may or may not have seen signs if you live in the area. They have no paid for sign on them, and it is not within the period of the primary election. So in certain areas, they are considered litter. Do with that as you will. But people are gonna be mad. Yes. So of course, the first major thing, the thing that we're all riled up for, and I think rightfully so on some level. And as we discussed, wow, I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago at this point, but the case itself wasn't full. I feel like I was one of the only people like in sort of the media landscape. And of course, Greater Society Media is not CNN, and it is not like, some of the bigger shows on YouTube. But I feel like a lot of people were acting like we knew all the charges, we knew everything that was going into this, and we quite clearly did not. And many things have come out since then. Many, many things. And this, I feel like I have to say this too. I don't know how I did it, but I somehow tweeted this into existence where on Thursday last week, the day after the show, so, we didn't talk about it, but the day after the show, I go, so is Trump getting arrested or not? Because it was, basically 2 weeks or a week and a half after he had said he was going to get arrested, or, when he claimed he was going to get arrested, and then leading up and the day got passed and whatever. So that night, it's announced that, or leaked, however you want to say it, it's announced, leaked, whatever. I don't even know. That Trump is going to get indicted yesterday, Tuesday. So I just, I tweeted out that Quasimodo predicted all of this. I hope my friend Jameer is in chat so he can appreciate that, and any Sopranos fans. But this has wide-reaching implications. But let's take a look at it. Let's lead up into it and see what happened that led into it. So first, we have On Truth Social, Donald J. Trump. This is from last week. It says 8 minutes ago, but this is from last week. I believe on Thursday. Wow, District Attorney Bragg just illegally leaked the various points and complete information on the pathetic indictment against me, which is not true. I know the reporter, and so, unfortunately, does he. This means that he must immediately be indicted. Now, if he wants to really clean up his reputation, he will do the honorable thing as district attorney, indict himself. He will go down in judicial history, and his Trump-hating wife will be, I am sure, very proud of him. So there you have Trump, of course, going after Bragg, the district attorney here. Now, that leads us into, I gotta get this timeline straight here, because this is can be not always the easiest to keep in line here. So that is what we had from last week. Then we have this truth, which, I guess technically is a truth. Donald Trump, truthing out, heading to Lower Manhattan, the courthouse. Seems so surreal. Wow. They are going to arrest me. Can't believe this is happening in America. MAGA. There. That is Trump, probably tweeting in the back of his car, or truthing in the back of his car as he's getting driven over there. And then this, oh no, I'll save this for after. So we wait and wait and wait and wait. And then we get to, hours and hours of buildup. We're waiting. It's going to happen at 2 o'clock. It's going to happen at 2:15. It's going to happen at 2:30. And it was somewhere around like 2:25-ish. Don't ask me why I know the exact times. But we get this brief, and I'm going to probably mute it just so I don't have any issues because it's going to be blasting, I feel like. This brief walk of shame from Donald Trump, where so there he is. This guy is a complete alpha. Look at him. Total alpha move. He is not upset whatsoever. This guy he's ecstatic. He thinks, "Oh, I'm total Sigma. I'm going to go in here. This is all BS. I'm fine." Of course, I'm being extremely facetious because this dude looks scared shitless. And frankly, look, if I was getting arrested, I don't think I would be looking too happy either. But this is the shot that we got of Donald Trump walking in right into the courthouse. You'll note that he had no handcuffs. He had no mugshot. So all this stuff that, frankly, the mugshot I would have had, if there was a mugshot, I would have gotten it printed out and put behind me, I think, just for the effect. And I think I would have never even mentioned it. I would have just put it back there and waited for you guys to mention it in the chat. But no handcuffs. That was a special thing because supposedly the handcuffs are usually used for people that are considered a flight risk or a potential threat to the district attorney or the staff or the judge in the courtroom. But the mugshot, I think, I am curious as to the reasoning why there was no mugshot. There was also no cameras in the court, which is a discretionary thing based on the judge, and the judge decided that there shouldn't be cameras. Now, there is an argument to say that there should have been cameras in there, not only for the historical recording of this, but also because Trump is known to stretch the truth, if we want to be generous, and talk about things that didn't happen, make things up whole cloth. So to have the evidence and say like, oh, this is what the judge said, this is what the district attorney said, blah, blah, blah. Here are the charges, right? That would be That would be good to have. We don't have that, and we didn't have that. But as you saw to the thumbnail of this video, we did have the one picture of him in there, and the one picture of him in there was taken prior to the judge taking the bench. So that is that there. Now let us go to what the actual charges are. So I believe, yes, here we go. We have a video here that should explain the charges. Which also, by the way, originally people were saying it's 34 misdemeanors. It turns out to be 34 felony charges, which is a totally different story. People are saying, oh, it might be one felony. It's 34 felony charges. Now, again, remember, you are in this country innocent until proven guilty. He has a trial. He will have a trial, and he has the ability to take a plea deal. He has the ability to do a number of different things. The grand jury is not putting him in jail. The grand jury allowed for him to be arrested and taken in there to have his trial, or to have his case tried. So the trial supposedly is going to happen in December or begin in December. So that's how long we have to wait for this. But this is the first of one of these. But here we go. This is from the Washington Post. If the sound wants to go.
To 34 felony counts of falsifying business records on April 4th, marking the first criminal charges for any former U.S. president. The charges stem from hush money payments made to adult film actress Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election, and Trump's culpability will likely hinge on the purpose of that payment. Falsifying business records in New York is a misdemeanor, but it can become a felony when there is an intent to defraud.
Michael Cohen. What did you call him? Jailbird Michael Cohen, who classically, as some folks in the chat might enjoy, was on CNN disregarding the polls that were showing Trump losing, which, you know, I guess technically he was somewhat right, but there's an infamous interview there you guys should go check out. It's classic.
Fraud.
And he was calling Michael Cohen, remember, that went to jail on behalf, basically, of Trump for these payments that he made out of pocket and may or may not have gotten paid back. We, are finding that out in this case. But Michael Cohen going on MSNBC the other day and calling Donald Trump Diaper Don and saying that Donald Trump's going to fill his diaper for no reason.
Includes an intent to commit, aid, or conceal another crime. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has alleged that Trump falsified business records to hide.
Oh man, look at that. That doesn't do him any favors.
The payment and to cover up an illegal catch.
Dude, that looks like, I'm sorry, that looks like a Lord of the Rings or a World of Warcraft character right here. That does not look like... Look, Donald Trump is not good looking, but that doesn't even look like Trump. That just looks like an orc.
Scheme to influence the election.
The participant scheme was illegal.
This is, for those listening, this is Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, who, is bringing the case against Trump.
The scheme violated New York election law, which makes it a crime to conspire to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. The $130,000 wire payment exceeded the federal campaign contribution cap, and the false statements in AMI's books violated New York law.
Bragg's indictment lists 34 separate instances of alleged misconduct by Trump. Each felony count carries a maximum sentence of 4 years. But even if convicted, legal experts have suggested
they're showing him leaving the court now.
Likely that Trump would face jail time as a first-time offender with no criminal record and a 2024 presidential candidate. In a similar hush money case in 2012, former presidential candidate John Edwards was acquitted on one count, and the jury failed to reach a verdict on 5 other charges. Trump has denied the alleged affair with Daniels and dismissed the charges after his arraignment hearing in New York.
As it turns out, virtually everybody that has looked at this case, including rhinos and even hardcore Democrats,
even Even
Say
the most hardcore Democrats, even rhinos. I hate the rhinos, but even rhinos, they know this is not a good case.
there is no crime.
It was a perfect call. It was a perfect hush money payment. It was a perfect affair. I mean, I didn't have an affair, guys. I did not have an affair. So there you go. That's what the charges are. The indictment is out there if you want to read about it. And if you want to look at all of the charges specifically. So now let's go beyond this. Let's go beyond the actual indictment, the arrest. Let's start looking at the circus and the zoo basically around what happened yesterday. And that starts, of course, with wannabe vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, coming in to New York for no reason to protest the arrest. Now remember, before I show this, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a congresswoman from Georgia. She has promoted QAnon conspiracy theories. She believes and has stated publicly that I believe it was the Rockefellers or something like that, but that there are I forget the which family. Oh man. I got it. Now I'm going to have to look it up. But she claimed that there were Jewish space lasers. She is a lunatic in Congress. And she is promoting herself in New York, where she claims, and people, this is also this is a frustrating part, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, all of these Republicans, Tucker Carlson, I'm sure. I know for a fact, but I don't know if Tucker Carlson lives in New York, but regardless, all of these people try to crap on cities. They try to crap on New York specifically. We'll talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene's hate for Eric Adams in a second. They crap on the cities. They say it's so high crime, so high crime. While crime has historically been going down for the last 30 years, New York leading in many of that in those. Now, of course, since the pandemic, there has been an uptick, but on the whole, it is still going down, and it actually has been going down over the last the last year or so. But Republican cities like I believe in Oklahoma and a couple other ones. I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but you can Google it. Per capita have a much higher crime rate than New York City. But for someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene to leave Georgia, to leave Washington, D.C., to come to New York, where she is not welcome, as you're about to see, to protest is, again, her putting herself out there saying, MAGA, I am your vice presidential candidate, and I want to be Trump's VP candidate, because probably not going to win, if we have anything to say about it, but that's that. And here you have Marjorie Taylor Greene being escorted by the police, which the same police that work with Eric Adams, of course, the New York Police Department and Secret Service, I believe, as well, or some sort of security with her. So there she is. Go back to Georgia, as someone said. There's a lot of media, there's a lot of people recording. There's not a lot of protesters with her. It's just a lot of media, it seems. And that's about it. So, I think I have another clip, I believe, of her, but I don't want to listen to her crap, speech. Here we have, though, an exchange between, to call it an exchange would be probably an exaggeration, but So Marjorie Taylor Greene gets a megaphone. She's saying all this stupid stuff and saying, "Oh, this is the, erosion of democracy, and you guys are blah blah blah." Right? Whatever. No one gives a crap what she has to say. So then she has to get out, basically. And here we have Congressman Jamal Bowman, who has been featured on this show benching 405 pounds, now in New York, where Jamal Bowman is actually from, pushing back against Marjorie Taylor Greene being here.
Hold accountable, Congressman. Whoa.
So there she goes, getting into a big car. So here's Jamal Bowman.
Now let's talk about the truth. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Now let's talk about the truth. Get out of here. What inspired that today? Jamal Bowman. What inspired that today?
Sorry for if you're just listening or if you're watching and it's like really sharp, there's all these people here have whistles. So you're not being crazy. It's not my audio. There are people there just blowing whistles for no reason.
I was born and raised in New York City. This is the city that I love. It's a city focused on hard work and love for all people. We will never accept hateful rhetoric in our city. Any rhetoric that is divisive, any rhetoric that uplifts white supremacy, we are pushing back against that in all its forms. Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to take her ass back to Washington and do something about gun violence, do something about affordable housing, do something about childhood poverty, do something about climate change. Do your freaking job, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
There you have it. That's about as succinct as you can be with that. And, some people will be upset. Oh, the mannerisms, he's yelling or whatever. Give me a break. This is what a bold progressive looks like, and this is what somebody that is standing up for our rights actually looks like in Congress. So then, once Marjorie Taylor Greene is in that motorcade, basically, as you saw there, she goes on Steve Bannon's podcast, The War Room, to discuss what happened. And of course, guys, remember, and I'll dive more into it in a second, but Eric Adams is a Democrat, and he's the mayor in New York. But by no stretch of the imagination is Eric Adams a progressive Democrat. So when people want to get upset, this is where we'll talk about some of this stuff more broadly with Trump and being above the law. But nobody's above the law. Nobody is special in this case, and we should have no qualms to say, you know what? Yeah, Eric Adams, I disagree with some of the stuff he does. Or Joe Biden, I disagree with some of the stuff he does. Because that's like being genuine, that's being transparent, that's being straightforward with what you actually believe. But the attacks from the right wing against Eric Adams is making him seem like it's Vladimir Lenin coming to lead a second revolution, which is oy. But here we go. As Marjorie Taylor Greene in the back of this car hops right on to talk to good old Steve Bannon.
Eric Adams specifically singled you out.
Eric Adams singled Marjorie Taylor Greene out because she is a white supremacist coming from Georgia to New York to support Donald Trump.
As a hooligan that's going to cause a
she is a hooligan.
Problem, and that you're dangerous and that you got to back off and go home.
She's dangerous because she supported the January 6th insurrection.
Your thoughts, ma'am?
He didn't just single me out, Steve. He threatened me.
No, he didn't.
He called me by name and threatened me.
No, he didn't.
The mayor of New York City, I believe, is a thug. And he sent his
dog whistle.
People here today, they had an organized text alert that went out calling what I would say Antifa.
I highly doubt that the mayor sent out an organized tweet. And if he did, which again, I don't have any evidence. They don't provide any evidence. I haven't seen anything to the contrary, but if there were some, I'm sure that there would have been proof of it. But calling Antifa, or as Trump has called it recently, Antifa, to come and protest and to shut down Marjorie Taylor Greene, which again, she looks very, very happy. That is not the case. That didn't happen. They make stuff up. They're playing the perpetual victim. And as I'm going to talk about a little bit more here in a second, they hate America.
To bring their whistles, pots and pans, all kinds of instruments.
The Republican, this is actually something I learned today on the drive home. There were Trump supporters that brought the whistles. They were trying to drown out the sound of counter protesters.
To make,
but it just so happened that they also gave them to, like, people, I guess, protesting, like, from the left or the center or from any other person other than the MAGA crew.
All kinds of noise to drown me out and drown others
You had a megaphone
here today that are protesting and here supporting President Trump. The mayor.
And let's also note, I'm sorry I keep pausing it. You drowning somebody else's voice out is your constitutionally protected First Amendment speech. You bringing a megaphone to a protest, you know, if it's in the open space, that is also your right to speak. So for every action that you take in the using the First Amendment and wielding the Constitution to say, I have every right to be here and to speak, everybody else has the same right to drown you out. Everybody else has the same right. And just because people don't want to hear you, that's too bad. They don't have to hear you. No one has to listen to you. So this is, again, the perpetual victimhood of the far right.
Of New York City, Mayor Adams owes me an apology.
He absolutely does not.
An elected member of Congress. I represent.
Who cares?
Hundreds of thousands of people from Northwest Georgia, but I also represent Americans all over the country that support Make America Great Again and support President Trump.
So that last part that's where I'll, kind of connect these two ideas. I'll talk about how, okay, she is drawing hate and ire towards Eric Adams. Eric Adams is constantly, if you ever drive into New York or into northern New Jersey, put on AM radio and listen to the right-wing nut jobs that talk about Eric Adams like he is Mao Zedong, like he hates police, like he wants crime to be running amok, like he supports the Joker himself. Eric Adams is a former cop. He doesn't support defunding the police. I don't even know if he supports real reforming of the police. He works with the police as a former cop, and he is doing his job, whether we like it or not, whether we disagree with him or not. I'm sure that there's plenty that I disagree with him on. But the constant hate of major cities in this country, and Jamal Bowman's right, one of the major things that plagues major cities in this country is gun violence, and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene don't want to do anything about it. Jamal Bowman, who represents New York City, part of it, wants to take action on gun violence. There's a major difference, right? But these folks attack and attack and attack, say that the justice system is a political game. They talk about all of these injustices towards the right wing, and we just want to take our country back, and we have an open border, and the economy is going down the drain, and all, which not one piece of what I just said from them is true. Not a thing is true. And this is why I don't like to say it this way rhetorically, but they hate America. They are not patriots whatsoever. They are nationalists, and they will wrap themselves in the flag and weaponize it against any sort of minority or any sort of marginalized group that they can to gain and wield more power. They have historically been the ones that have benefited from it. They're talking about nobody's above the law. Nobody is above the law for years and years and years and years. While Fred Hampton's getting assassinated in his bed. Martin Luther King is being told to commit suicide by the FBI. By both of these things being done by the FBI, the same FBI that, as I'll talk about here in a second, Trump wants to defund. The assassination of Malcolm X. These are all, I mean, yeah, oh, okay, those all happened in the 1960s. Look, I mean, you can look at the weaponization against plenty of other people that would not be right-wing darlings. I mean, maybe some of them would be today, like Edward Snowden or Chelsea Manning wouldn't be, and none of these people, right? But no, of course, we can't talk about those. We're just gonna say if you want to arrest Trump, you have to arrest Bill Clinton. Okay, if he committed a crime, charge him with it, bring it to trial. See, that is what the American system of law is supposed to be. It's supposed to be able to hold people to account. If you commit a crime, now, if the law is unjust, if there's any sort of, there's plenty of lines that we can go down. And that's not to say that either that people can't be reformed or people can't change. People need to be locked away for 10, 20, 50 years. That's not the case. But these people don't believe in reformative justice. So it's layers and layers and layers. Hypocrisy is not even the right word for it. They don't believe in the systems of government. They don't believe in the system of the judicial system. Not to say, oh, the Supreme Court is busted, we should reform it. They say, this whole thing is wrong because my guy's going down. They don't say my democracy is going down the drain because not everyone's voting. They say, I don't want everyone to vote. That's the difference. They don't want universal rights. They don't want everyone to have the same, if you want to call it, privileges. They want to call you an entitled, whatever, whatever, insert noun there. Because they got theirs and they want to hold on to theirs. Because that to them, that's what makes America great. But to me and to you as progressives, what makes America great is the opportunity and the chance to make a better life for ourselves, for our family, for our kids, for the future, to have a sustainable and habitable, oh my God, planet. But they don't care. They'd rather sell themselves out to make more money. So last thing here, I think on this. Yeah, let's do this. Last thing on here is, oh, now I lost it. 1 second. We have, just keep scrolling past things. All right, last two things. Here we have Lindsey Graham, senator, by the way, on Fox News with Sean Hannity. Let me pull this up. Talking about the, as you will see, quote, political persecution of Trump. And Lindsey Graham is going to try to do something. He's going to help raise money for Trump.
Application of our laws is dead. It may be, but we got one last chance here to straighten this out. I just told you a Democratic president lies under oath regarding sexual matters.
He was impeached, by the way.
They're not prosecuted.
No, he was impeached. There's a difference. There's no precedent to prosecute a sitting president.
Democratic Secretary of State running for president destroys 33,000 emails under subpoena. They're not.
She was investigated, and there was nothing found on those things. And he's talking about Hillary Clinton, of course. And again, I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton's more broadly. Like I'm not anti Hillary Clinton, but I'm not holding her up to be a hero. If she committed crimes, okay, hold her to account. She testified for hours and hours and hours about Benghazi, and there was nothing. These folks want to make stuff up, and then they get mad when their guy gets caught doing something for real. And then this case, of course, remember, as we've move past this in a second, this is one of the cases. This is not even the most serious case.
Not prosecuted. This is selective prosecution. It's legal garbage in New York. It's politically motivated. And we do have one last chance to not become a banana republic. 2024 is the most important election in my lifetime. America literally
People say that every single election.
is at stake as we know it, is at stake as we know it. I'm sorry I'm so upset, but please help President Trump. If you can afford $5 or $10, if you can't afford $1, fine, just pray. Make sure you vote as early as you
Just pray. That's good. You can just pray. If you're watching this and you're a Trump supporter, just pray. You don't need to give this guy money. Even if you're the biggest Trump fan, you don't need to give this guy money.
can in your state. Don't risk anything anymore. Vote as soon as you can.
Because voting is good now for them, and voting early is good for them now. And, as Trump said last week, let's do ballot harvesting, which, again, they said is illegal, but let's do it. I mean, these guys are full of crap.
Pray for this country. Pray for this president. And if you got any money to give, give it. LindseyGraham.com. It doesn't go to me. It goes to helping this president and taking back.
You got to go to Lindsey Graham, his website, to help Donald Trump. Yeah, because that makes total sense. Now, of course, he's going to split it. He's going to split money between him and these Senate seats in 2024. And, come on, Lindsey, you can come and spend money in Pennsylvania. We'll kick your butt again, too. Bob Casey, will beat any of the Republicans that they put up. I'll just put that in. I'll put that flag down now. So just last thing on this is Trump this morning truthing out. Republicans in Congress should defund the DOJ, which is the Department of Justice, and the FBI until they come to their senses. This is all, for those listening, this is in all caps. The Democrats have totally weaponized law enforcement, which is not the case, by the way. Law enforcement is not... It's overwhelmingly Republican, by the way. I'll just leave it at that. All right, I'll restart the sentence. The Democrats have totally weaponized law enforcement in our country and are viciously using this abuse of power to interfere with our already under siege elections. Nonsense. Total nonsense from the failed former President Donald John Trump. So, my predictions here. This will actually, in my opinion, help Trump in the primary election. I talked about this 2 weeks ago, but I think that his perpetual victimhood complex and his followers, and again, this is the beauty of this all, is the themes and it's beauty, but it's also ugliness. The themes of one story leak into another. This will jump into what we're talking about at the end of the show with the right-wingers, going after friend of the show and putting all these stupid signs in this website, CBSD 411. They're perpetual victims. So they feel like they're under attack, they're under siege, as Trump put it. They identify with Trump because of that. They feel like they're losing something. And maybe they are. This is the age-old question, the erosion of a functional capitalist society, or maybe the trajectory of what capitalism looks like as we move in towards a mixed economy or moving towards some new system. These erosions make people feel like they're losing something because they are. Wages have been stagnant. Healthcare is more unaffordable and unattainable for people today than it was in the past. People can't retire. They don't care about this stuff, but people like us care about intersectionality, making sure that the LGBTQ plus community is safe and protected, making sure that historically marginalized communities otherwise, like African Americans, or just any other religious minority for that matter that isn't a Christian. Again, we talk about this, the rise in anti-Semitism over the last few years. These things build and build and build and build. But it's incumbent upon us to actually address the issues. And these people don't want to. They just want to feel like, oh, woe is me. My feelings are hurt because you guys are being woke and you're going after Trump. So that's really the crux of all this. Now, speaking of woke, in Wisconsin, liberals gain control. I don't want this. Stop playing. Liberals gain control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court for the first time in 15 years. Janet, I'm not gonna say it right, but Protasiewicz wins over Dan Kelly in Wisconsin. And what this means is, and I don't know that I have to show any of this other than the fact is, I'm just going to call her Judge Janet for the sake of not butchering her name. Judge Janet won by nearly 10 points. 10%. Wisconsin, go back 4 months, 5 months, 6 months ago, and you will see me talking on it here, saying that Wisconsin is a low-key sleeper progressive behemoth. You will see that we are in Wisconsin, the same as Pennsylvania, in my opinion, is moving towards the Democrats, and it is moving towards a progressive outlook on this country and protecting workers, because that is what is in the background and the lifeblood of Wisconsinites. And you go back, of course, and remember, we haven't talked about it as much on the show because I can only talk about the atrocities hitting women when it comes to abortion rights so much. I could probably read hundreds and hundreds of stories that have happened since then, but the Dobbs decision in 2022, which overturned Roe versus Wade, is the reason why people, specifically women, in these elections are turning out in record rates in off-cycle elections to vote for Democrats, because they know that Democrats will protect their reproductive rights. A 10-point win is a walloping in a swing state. This is not like, you could compare it to John Fetterman or Shapiro beating Oz and Mastriano, respectively. These were not close. This election was not close, which is good. If you are somebody that supports, and again, you don't have to be the most liberal or leftist or progressive to care about bodily autonomy for people. This is something that's important. And Wisconsin is going to lead the way on this. It's going to protect that. But also, there's two pieces to build off of that further. One being gerrymandering. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has the final say about I guess technically, unless it went to the Supreme Court of the United States, but has the final say in the state about the maps that are used for their state legislature, which has been gerrymandered in the past. This will allow for free and fair elections and give people a fair shot for real representation for themselves. But the second thing is the protection of the integrity of our democracy when it comes to federal elections. This is, and people were saying it outright on Twitter, this is a way, because they were saying the opposite, I suppose, because they were saying now we won't win in Wisconsin in 2024. The Republicans saying that. They're telling you that they don't believe in the system unless their politically biased person gets on the bench. So, while on this topic, this is how you don't give a concession speech. Here you have the, MAGA, I suppose, Dan Kelly, who got beaten by Judge Janet in Wisconsin. Here's his concession speech.
And it brings me no joy to say this. I wish that in a circumstance like this, I would be able to concede to a worthy opponent.
but I do not have a worthy opponent to which I can concede. This was the most deeply deceitful, dishonorable, despicable campaign I have ever seen run for the courts. It was truly beneath contempt. Now I say this not because we did not prevail. I do
Which you did.
not say this because of the rancid slanders that were launched against me,
Like what?
although that was bad enough. But that is not my concern. My concern is the damage done to the institution of the courts.
I'm not gonna keep playing this, but I wanted to play that part because it's a slim majority. It's a one-person majority. And if liberal-leaning people leads to the erosion and the destruction of the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, then we're really working in a system that is not functional, that is very weak in its foundation. And again, if you believe that, you don't really care about the foundation of the nation and the foundation of your state. There is criticisms to be had, and then there are things like that that are just to say, oh, this person's bad, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not gonna, because he didn't concede to this person. That's kind of he didn't concede in this, and that's kind of the point of it, right? So that is Wisconsin. In Chicago, as we talked about, and there's so many ads on news nowadays, it's so insane. In Chicago, Brandon Johnson will be the next mayor of Chicago. NBC News projected Tuesday, making a stunning turn for a staunch progressive and a former teacher whose campaign leaned into messages of racial and economic disparities, and who overcame blowback over past comments about decreasing police funding. Johnson defeated the well-financed, tough-on-crime, quote, I'm putting quotes, moderate, Paul Vallis, because this guy was even PA representatives were calling this guy a Republican running as a Democrat. A former CEO of the Chicago Public Schools who promised to immediately bulk up the Chicago police ranks to curb a crisis of gun violence. So what's good here is that Vallis told his supporters, and this I'm going to explain in a second, told his supporters Tuesday night that he called Johnson and told him, I absolutely expect him to be the next mayor. So that is important because if you remember in Buffalo, which I believe, I'm forgetting her name, Walton, I believe, was running, and then the Democrats, the centrist Democrats, after she won the primary, then had run in a third party independent campaign, which beat her in the general, which I guess they have every right to do that, but it tells you where people's priorities are, where they're going to spend millions of dollars to defeat a progressive candidate. Now, in my opinion, the reason why this is so important is because this guy, Brandon Johnson, is an outright progressive. He is supported and was supported by the Working Families Party, and you can go back to the original time we talked about this when Lori Lightfoot lost the primary to Brandon Johnson. But this man is a teacher. He was a teacher, and he was a union organizer. Two things in this country that should have a ton of respect, and we need more representation from teachers and from labor in our government. People that have experience organizing and people that care and give a damn about working class families. So that's really like the crux of the story. But these two election wins in the middle of April prove that bold, progressive ideas and bold leadership can and will win elections and can lead the way with messaging first, your ideas and your platform first, and then everything else second. When you run scared, and this is a message to people that are running from the local all the way up. When you run scared, when you run without a platform, when you run without an agenda of items that you want to say, I'm going to run to pass Medicare for all, I'm going to run to pass this, this, and this, even if you don't have the opportunity to pass it all, you should be telling people what you prioritize, what you care about. There are folks that want to run and they want to run. I'm a centrist. I'm a moderate, and I don't, I'm not going to say anything controversial. I'm not going to stand for anything controversial. I'm not going to push the needle. I'm not going to really be bold. I'm not going to be who I am. Then don't be surprised when you lose. Don't be surprised. Don't come looking to people to say, what happened? What happened? I did what I had to do. I look towards there are some people running for school board that I talked about here in the local race that are actually leading with, we're going to run on X, Y, and Z. We're going to talk about full day kindergarten, which I think is a great idea. As someone who went to full day kindergarten as a kid, that is a great idea. There are bread and butter things that people actually care about, and politicians talking about policy instead of just fluffy background stuff. Or, whatever. I don't want to get too locked in on certain people that do things, but talking about your agenda and your vision for the country or for your town and everything in between, that is vital to winning. So, with that, let's go from the national to the states to Chicago and come all the way back here to Central Bucks, where we have the right wing. Oh man, these people are something else. All right. Here we have, and for those who can't see it, I'm going to zoom in. All right. So here we have, I'm going to probably not even say it right, Shenanigans, friend of the show, having a digital piece, I'll emphasize digital piece, showing the Honest Abe and the Silly Six. So the Silly Six, of course, being the 6 school board directors that are right-leaning, if I'm going to be nice. And this is Abe Lukaba, who is the sitting superintendent for Central Bucks. And for those who can't see it, the caption has him saying, "Guys, come on, show some humanity. I just want to restore what's been eroded. Swear to God." And he has his fingers crossed. There are piles of money that are being burned, a $1 million discrimination lawsuit, which actually the discrimination lawsuit's more than that. But the the discrimination lawsuit is going to be paying out more than $1 million. The legal fees are $1 million. $250,000 PR firm, gender pay lawsuit, and then there's books being burned, critical thinking, inclusivity, diversity, integrity, reality, biology, trust, statistics, research, etc. This is then being latched onto by the far right folks on Twitter for pretty much no reason, but this is one of the folks that tweeted this out and says, Doylestown Democrat and sitting Central Bucks School Board Director Tabitha Delangelo, her husband Steve Sullivan, and they're linking to where she teaches, and failed CBSD board candidate Diana Lagerman and ousted former CBSD board member Tracy Suits paid money for this cartoon mocking her fellow Central Bucks School Board directors and the superintendent, while also mocking Christianity during the most holy week for Christians worldwide. CBSD schools will do better without Tabitha on the board. I don't even know what that last word is, but then she's tagging all these other right-wing nut jobs, and like Jack Posobiec and Buck's GOP, of course. But this is showing payments to support an artist that had nothing to do with this digital painting, because what they're doing is, and I will show it here, donating to an artist. And if you see, it says 5 pints of paint. This is not at all connected to a campaign. This is not at all connected to any candidate. This is, and again, I will emphasize, weaponized nationalism against the freedom of speech of an artist, of a local resident that lives within a certain jurisdiction that has a right to say whatever they want, that gives a crap about the schools. And there is nothing wrong with an artist making political statements. So I'm not going to name names because there's a certain somebody who's a little litigious who is supposedly alleging that there are campaign finance laws being broken. Of course, ignoring the campaign finance laws that CBSD 411 are breaking by having those signs out there. But again, if you don't have the paid for signs on a yard sign that is political, then it's considered litter. He is alleging that campaign finance laws are being broken and has no evidence of such. And if you think about it, let's just take a step back, okay? Let's go back to, let's disconnect it from today and let's go back to the year 2000. There's this band, you may have heard of them, called Rage Against the Machine. And they make songs, aka art. And people pay for them. People used to pay for music. Yeah, believe it or not. And when you pay for an album or when you pay for a concert, you are not contributing to a campaign that supports a specific campaign or a political ideology or any of these things, right? You are paying an artist to make art, to listen to their music, to view their painting, to look at their sculpture, which they don't like sculptures of Michelangelo's sculptures anymore. They don't like art. They don't like painting. They don't like anything that could be implied nudity. They don't like books. So they're going after a digital painting. But if you went and paid for Rage Against the Machine's album, were you breaking campaign finance laws against George W. Bush? Were you breaking campaign finance laws in 1996 by listening to Bulls on Parade and downloading that you buying that album, Evil Empire? And, this is really a donation against Bill Clinton, and we have to get... No, you're not. I don't know how people are this dull. Art is art. If it's commissioned or painted for or done for a campaign, this is not. If it was, then it could be said paid for by this. Even these alleged, which are bullshit, are being alleged against people that aren't running for office. So if I paid for a painting of me, which again they didn't do, but even if I did, if I'm not campaigning, if I'm not running for something, if I'm not using it for campaign materials, which they're not, there's no disclaimer needed. There is no campaign finance reports needed. There is no reporting of those things needed because that is called free market capitalism. And it is called The First Amendment to the Constitution, freedom of speech. And these folks hate it. That is why, I mean, this is ludicrous. Ludicrous. And here we have this, and I'll preface it. You guys have to be 16 years old or older to enter this website because it is so insightful. It is so insightful. CBSD 411, just the facts. Now again, let's read this platform, and then I want to tell you something. CBSD 411 is a platform dedicated to showcasing the remarkable achievements made by the Central Bucks School District. Okay. CBSD is the third largest school district, ranked 17th in Pennsylvania. Our 3 amazing high schools are ranked in the top 5% in the nation. For the above reasons, families are drawn to Central Bucks School District and expect CBSD to maintain high academic standards, which have come from decades of conservative leadership. That last part is bullshit. Our platform aims to dispel misinformation, negative headlines, and focus on just the facts. The school board has worked tirelessly to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and return to normalcy. The administration is focused on learning loss and helping CBSD lead the way forward in academic excellence. And here you go. This is, as you can see, the president of the school board, Dana Hunter, and fellow directors have updated 2 policies. So they're talking in support of the school board directors. And when they say every single child, they're talking about the education of all students. They actually don't give a damn about the LGBTQ plus students. They actually don't care about people with disabilities that need slight alterations, that need help in the school. Now, I went to CB West. I went to Tohickon Middle School. And I went to Groveland Elementary School. So I actually went to the schools here. So why do I say that conservative leadership... Also, you can, if you guys want to see, you guys can sign up and leave, messages and fill out their petition here to remove sexually explicit materials from our schools. Now, again, that's not in schools. They are talking about any sort of implied nudity in any sort of book that may or may not exist. And even if there isn't really it in there, we're going to challenge it anyway. So that's where their book banning policy comes from. I just want to point out one thing before we go. I went to the schools. I went there in 2007 through 2014. There were pride flags. There were different countries' flags. There was symbology. There were, in social studies, all different types of historical figures. I read about things that would not be allowed based on the book banning policy. And not because it was nudity, but for violence, for all these different things. But it was part of the curriculum because it was necessary and it is vital. It is to understand the history of our world. Specifically, what comes to mind is King Leopold's Ghost, which, if any of these people actually read, would probably be up in a tizzy about that. Maybe not, because it's not about the LGBT. It's not written by an LGBT artist or a author. Because that's what they care about. Now, I was in the schools when they had all of this stuff. But, Connor, isn't that wokeism? Isn't that what they're fighting against? Isn't that like eroding the brains of our children or making it hard to learn or distracting or whatever? Oh, wait, no, it's not? You're telling me that even with all of those things in your school, making it more accepting for gay and trans individuals, which, by the way, it still wasn't, but it was improving. It was moving towards that. We had, Gay Straight Alliance. We had all these things, which I, in retrospect, wish I would did more to support. Because if this was what I knew was coming, then, we're playing catch up now. being that I was in choir, being that I took classes that put me in cohorts and classes with people that I may not have otherwise had contact with as a football player, opens your eyes. It says, okay, this person actually has a better experience in this school because they feel welcome because there's this club or because there's this extracurricular activity. And these folks, I'm putting it nicely again, don't want to provide that support. They think that it's political. It somehow wasn't political in 2013 and 2014 when I was there. Which, I will remind you, predates the legalization of gay marriage. When I was in high school, that's right when that decision came out. I'll tell you, when I was in college at Penn State, which, by the way, going to Central Bucks made it a lot easier for me to get into a school like Penn State, and frankly, to go to Penn now. But when I was at Penn State, that's when the bathroom ban started to happen. And we didn't have an issue in Central Bucks because there is no issue. There is no woke ideology coming to get your kids. There is no wokeism coming to indoctrinate. It is about support, it is about providing resources, and it is about building a community that is welcoming and not divisive. They don't want us to express our First Amendment right. They don't want us all to unify because they're afraid they're going to lose something. And to actually go back on that tweet, the allegation, and this kind of hints at what I'm talking about with the victimhood, the allegation of going after Christians in that picture is blatantly false. There is nothing true about that because guess what? Wielding religion as a weapon is much different than believing in a religion or practicing a religion. Being a Christian nationalist is a lot different than believing in the teachings of Jesus Christ. There are vastly different things. And to say that there is no separation of church and state is not to diminish or to hate or to otherize Christianity. That is an important note. The First Amendment allows freedom of and from religion. And in our public schools, which I guess maybe these folks don't want, these schools should be secular, the same way that our government should be secular. There is no established religion in America because the founding fathers were fleeing persecution of the religious style. Now, of course, there's a whole rabbit hole to go down there, and we don't have to go down that today. Maybe another time. But for today, that is all I have for you. Now, I want to thank you guys for watching the show or listening. If you are listening after, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel by going down below my head right here and hitting the subscribe button, hitting the thumbs up. You guys will help us grow in the algorithm and promote independent progressive media that we need to combat the lies and disinformation spread from these folks. You can listen on anywhere you basically can find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc., and follow or subscribe there. You can support the show for as little as $3 a month on patreon.com/Greater Society Media. We are working on, different perks that we can come up on. But for now, we are just working on keeping the show afloat as we get through tax season and making sure that we are looking to bring on some good guests, I think, in the upcoming future. So you could do that again. That would be greatly appreciated. You can follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook, Greater Society Media, and you can follow me on Twitter at Con O'Hanlon. I think that's all we got for you today. So until next time, stay safe. Peace.